Alistair MacLean, one of the most celebrated thriller and war novelists of the 20th century, was first approached to write the script for Where Eagles Dare in the mid-1960s, at a time when World War II films were experiencing a surge in popularity. Unlike his previous projects, which had been adapted into films after being published as novels, MacLean was tasked with developing an original screenplay directly for the silver screen. This was an unusual move at the time, as Hollywood typically relied on existing novels as source material, but producers saw MacLean's talent for crafting intense, fast-paced war narratives as the perfect fit for a gripping action-packed film. The inspiration for Where Eagles Dare stemmed from real-life covert operations carried out by British Special Forces during World War II, particularly the daring raids conducted by the Special Air Service, SAS, and the British Commandos. MacLean, having previously written about espionage and high-stakes war missions in books like The Guns of Navarone, was already well-versed in creating high-tension narratives set against the backdrop of the war. However, Where Eagles Dare was to be unique in its approach, blending a thrilling rescue mission with deep layers of deception, double-crosses, and high-stakes suspense. MacLean set out to craft a story that would keep audiences on the edge of their seats, full of unexpected twists and betrayals, rather than just a straightforward wartime action movie. The premise was simple yet effective. A team of Allied soldiers would infiltrate a heavily fortified German castle in the Austrian Alps to rescue a captured American general who possessed critical war intelligence. However, as the plot unfolds, it would be revealed that the mission was not as straightforward as it seemed, with secret agendas and traitorous conspiracies at play. MacLean's ability to weave complex yet accessible plots made him a perfect fit for writing a screenplay that could appeal to both casual audiences and military history enthusiasts. One of the most compelling aspects of his writing style was his focus on suspense and misdirection, ensuring that the audience remained unsure of who could be trusted right up until the climactic final act. This was especially important for Where Eagles Dare, as the film was intended to be more than just a war adventure. It was a mystery thriller disguised as a military operation. MacLean spent months developing the screenplay, refining key elements to maximize tension and excitement while keeping the plot logical and grounded. His experience as a former Royal Navy serviceman gave him a strong understanding of military strategy and wartime logistics, adding authenticity to the story. He also meticulously researched real-life Nazi strongholds, including high-altitude fortresses used by the German military, to ensure that the setting felt realistic. The decision to make the castle an almost impenetrable enemy stronghold added to the film's appeal, as it presented a seemingly impossible mission that would require both intelligence and brute force to succeed. Initially, MacLean's screenplay was far more dialogue-heavy and focused on espionage rather than action, but this was later adjusted to include more gunfights and thrilling escapes to align with audience expectations. Unlike traditional war films of the era, which often portrayed large-scale battles, Where Eagles Dare centered on a small, elite team, making the stakes feel more personal and immediate. MacLean's involvement in the project was so crucial that he was given creative control over many aspects of the script's development, a rare privilege for a screenwriter at the time. Interestingly, he also wrote the novelization of Where Eagles Dare while working on the screenplay, ensuring that both mediums complemented each other rather than existing as separate entities. This simultaneous development of the book and movie was a strategic move, as it allowed for cross-promotion and gave audiences an additional way to experience the story. The success of MacLean's novel adaptation would later help solidify Where Eagles Dare as one of the most well-regarded war thrillers in both literature and cinema. His storytelling choices, from the claustrophobic tension within the castle to the brutal efficiency of the commandos, set the tone for a new kind of war film, one that combined espionage, action, and psychological warfare in equal measure. The casting of Where Eagles Dare was a crucial step in bringing Alistair MacLean's screenplay to life, and it began with securing a leading man who could embody the charisma, intelligence, and physical toughness required for the role of Major John Smith. The producers quickly set their sights on Richard Burton, one of Britain's most distinguished actors, known for his commanding presence and Shakespearean background. At the time, Burton was already a major Hollywood star, though his career had taken a turn towards commercial projects rather than the highbrow theatrical roles that had initially defined him. His decision to take on the lead role in Where Eagles Dare was influenced by several factors, including the prospect of playing a rugged war hero, the film's thrilling plot, and the opportunity to work on a large-scale action-adventure project that differed from his usual dramatic roles. However, one of the biggest motivations for Burton was his desire to make a film that would appeal to his young stepson, who was fascinated by war movies and action-packed stories. This personal connection to the project made him eager to take on the role, despite initial concerns that he was not necessarily the ideal choice for a physically demanding action movie. At 43 years old, Burton was older than the typical action star and had a reputation for being more of a literary performer than a guns-blazing hero, but the producers believed that his deep, authoritative voice and intense screen presence would more than compensate for any physical limitations. His involvement added significant prestige to the production, helping to attract funding and ensure that the film would have a strong international audience. Once Burton was secured, the search for his co-star began, and the role of Lieutenant Schaefer, the American soldier who accompanies Major Smith on the mission, was offered to Clint Eastwood. At the time, Eastwood was best known for his roles in Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy of spaghetti westerns, and Where Eagles Dare represented one of his first major Hollywood war films. Unlike Burton, who was primarily drawn to the film for personal reasons, Eastwood accepted the role largely because of its minimal dialogue and high action content, which suited his on-screen persona as a quiet yet deadly force. He was also attracted by the opportunity to work with a major studio on a large-budget production, as his previous westerns had been European co-productions filmed on relatively tight budgets. Initially, there were concerns about the dynamic between Burton and Eastwood, as they came from very different acting backgrounds. One a classically trained stage performer and the other a rising action star with a minimalistic approach to dialogue. However, this contrast ultimately worked in the film's favor, as it reinforced the difference between their characters. Burton's Major Smith was the strategic mastermind, while Eastwood's Schaefer was the efficient, no-nonsense enforcer. The two actors quickly developed a mutual respect on set, though Burton, known for his heavy drinking, sometimes struggled with maintaining discipline during filming. Beyond the two leading men, the supporting cast was carefully assembled to complement the film's high-stakes espionage narrative. Mary Ure, a British actress with a background in both film and theater, was cast as Mary Ellison, the female agent who plays a vital role in the infiltration mission. Unlike many war films of the time, which sidelined female characters or relegated them to romantic subplots, Where Eagles Dare gave Ure's character an active and integral role in the mission. The German officers and other supporting roles were filled by a mix of British and European actors, many of whom had experience playing Nazi characters in previous war films. Among them was Darren Nesbitt, who played the cold and calculating Gestapo officer Major von Hapen, a character who would serve as one of the primary antagonists. His performance was particularly memorable due to his icy demeanor and the cat-and-mouse tension he created in his scenes with Burton and Ure. With the cast in place, pre-production efforts focused on refining the script and preparing for the demanding shoot. One of the biggest challenges during this phase was adjusting McClane's screenplay to better suit the actors and the realities of filming. Richard Burton, in particular, had a significant influence on script revisions, as he wanted to ensure that his character had more depth and complexity than just a standard war hero. As a result, additional dialogue was added to emphasize Major Smith's strategic brilliance and his ability to manipulate the situation to his advantage. At the same time, Eastwood's role was streamlined to focus more on action and efficiency, reducing his dialogue in favor of showcasing his deadly skills with a submachine gun. This adjustment played to Eastwood's strengths, as his performance was largely defined by his stoic, no-nonsense approach to the character. Another major pre-production challenge was designing the action sequences in a way that would be both visually spectacular and logistically feasible. The film's climax, which involved an intense shootout inside the German castle, required careful planning to ensure that it would be as thrilling as possible while still maintaining a sense of realism. Additionally, the famous cable car sequence, in which the characters engage in a fight high above the snowy mountains, posed significant technical difficulties, as it involved real stunts performed at dangerous heights. The filmmakers wanted to avoid excessive reliance on studio sets and rear projection, so they planned to shoot many of these scenes on location in the Austrian Alps. However, this decision presented new challenges, particularly in terms of ensuring the safety of the actors and crew in the harsh, freezing conditions. One of the most critical aspects of pre-production was also securing the right filming locations, as the movie required both authentic German military settings and breathtaking mountainous landscapes. The producers scouted several European locations before deciding on Austria as the primary filming site. The Schloss Hohenwerfen, a historic medieval castle, was chosen as the central location for the film's German stronghold, as its imposing structure and dramatic mountaintop placement made it the perfect setting for a high-stakes infiltration mission. Extensive modifications were made to the castle's exterior to give it a more fortress-like appearance, including the addition of Nazi banners, artificial defensive emplacements, and other period-accurate details. Despite the many logistical difficulties, the pre-production phase successfully set the stage for what would become one of the most visually stunning war films of its time. The combination of a star-studded cast, an action-packed script, and a carefully planned filming strategy ensured that Where Eagles Dare was well positioned to deliver both thrilling combat sequences and a gripping espionage narrative. With the cast trained, the location secured, and the script fine-tuned, the production was ready to move into its most challenging phase: the physically demanding and technically complex process of filming in the Austrian Alps. Alistair MacLean, one of the most celebrated thriller and war novelists of the 20th century, was first approached to write the script for Where Eagles Dare in the mid-1960s, at a time when World War II films were experiencing a surge in popularity. Unlike his previous projects, which had been adapted into films after being published as novels, MacLean was tasked with developing an original screenplay directly for the silver screen. This was an unusual move at the time, as Hollywood typically relied on existing novels as source material, but producers saw MacLean's talent for crafting intense, fast-paced war narratives as the perfect fit for a gripping action-packed film. The inspiration for Where Eagles Dare stemmed from real-life covert operations carried out by British Special Forces during World War II, particularly the daring raids conducted by the Special Air Service, SAS, and the British Commandos. MacLean, having previously written about espionage and high-stakes war missions in books like The Guns of Navarone, was already well-versed in creating high-tension narratives set against the backdrop of the war. However, Where Eagles Dare was to be unique in its approach, blending a thrilling rescue mission with deep layers of deception, double crosses, and high-stakes suspense. MacLean set out to craft a story that would keep audiences on the edge of their seats, full of unexpected twists and betrayals, rather than just a straightforward wartime action movie. The premise was simple yet effective. A team of Allied soldiers would infiltrate a heavily fortified German castle in the Austrian Alps to rescue a captured American general who possessed critical war intelligence. However, as the plot unfolds, it would be revealed that the mission was not as straightforward as it seemed, with secret agendas and traitorous conspiracies at play. MacLean's ability to weave complex yet accessible plots made him a perfect fit for writing a screenplay that could appeal to both casual audiences and military history enthusiasts. One of the most compelling aspects of his writing style was his focus on suspense and misdirection, ensuring that the audience remained unsure of who could be trusted right up until the climactic final act. This was especially important for Where Eagles Dare, as the film was intended to be more than just a war adventure. It was a mystery thriller disguised as a military operation. MacLean spent months developing the screenplay, refining key elements to maximize tension and excitement while keeping the plot logical and grounded. His experience as a former Royal Navy serviceman gave him a strong understanding of military strategy and wartime logistics, adding authenticity to the story. He also meticulously researched real-life Nazi strongholds, including high-altitude fortresses used by the German military, to ensure that the setting felt realistic. The decision to make the castle an almost impenetrable enemy stronghold added to the film's appeal, as it presented a seemingly impossible mission that would require both intelligence and brute force to succeed. Initially, MacLean's screenplay was far more dialogue-heavy and focused on espionage rather than action, but this was later adjusted to include more gunfights and thrilling escapes to align with audience expectations. Unlike traditional war films of the era, which often portrayed large-scale battles, Where Eagles Dare centered on a small, elite team, making the stakes feel more personal and immediate. MacLean's involvement in the project was so crucial that he was given creative control over many aspects of the script's development, a rare privilege for a screenwriter at the time. Interestingly, he also wrote the novelization of Where Eagles Dare while working on the screenplay, ensuring that both mediums complemented each other rather than existing as separate entities. This simultaneous development of the book and movie was a strategic move, as it allowed for cross-promotion and gave audiences an additional way to experience the story. The success of MacLean's novel adaptation would later help solidify Where Eagles Dare as one of the most well-regarded war thrillers in both literature and cinema. His storytelling choices, from the claustrophobic tension within the castle to the brutal efficiency of the commandos, set the tone for a new kind of war film, one that combined espionage, action, and psychological warfare in equal measure. With principal photography completed, the production moved into its next crucial phase: special effects, action choreography refinement, and post-production editing, which would ultimately shape the film's final impact. One of the defining aspects of Where Eagles Dare was its masterful blend of high-intensity action sequences, practical special effects, and war realism that elevated it above other war films of the era. Unlike many of its predecessors, which focused primarily on large-scale battle scenes, Where Eagles Dare was designed as a tightly woven espionage thriller with bursts of explosive action, meaning that every gunfight, explosion, and chase sequence had to be meticulously planned to maintain the film's relentless pacing. The production team worked extensively to ensure that each set piece felt as authentic and thrilling as possible, relying on practical effects, expert stunt work, and detailed action choreography to create a sense of immediacy and realism. However, achieving this level of cinematic spectacle required intensive coordination between the special effects team, the stunt department, and the actors, as well as overcoming significant technical challenges along the way. One of the most notable elements of the film's action sequences was its use of large-scale pyrotechnics, particularly in the climactic escape scene, where Richard Burton's Major Smith and Clint Eastwood's Lieutenant Schaefer must fight their way out of the enemy stronghold while being pursued by waves of Nazi soldiers. The production team employed real explosives to create dramatic fireballs and destruction, making the film's battle sequences feel more visceral and immersive. Unlike modern war films that rely heavily on digital effects, where Eagles Dare had to carefully rig real explosions in controlled settings, ensuring that they provided maximum impact without endangering the cast and crew. Pyrotechnic experts worked tirelessly to synchronize the blasts with the actors' movements, using hidden charges that would detonate precisely as the action unfolded. These techniques added a layer of authenticity that made the film's action sequences some of the most spectacular of their time. In addition to pyrotechnics, the film's gunfights were choreographed with an emphasis on precision and efficiency, particularly in the way Clint Eastwood's character, Lieutenant Schaefer, handled his weapons. Unlike many war films of the 1960s, which often featured prolonged shootouts with exaggerated theatrics, where Eagles Dare took a more tactically realistic approach to gunplay, with Eastwood's character dispatching enemies quickly and methodically. Schaefer's signature weapon, a silenced MP-40 submachine gun, became one of the most iconic elements of the film, as it allowed him to take out enemies with cold efficiency. This approach to action was a departure from traditional war films, which typically portrayed soldiers engaging in drawn-out firefights, and instead aligned more closely with the modern action thriller style that would later become a staple of movies featuring elite operatives and spies. Richard Burton's Major Smith, on the other hand, was designed as a more cerebral and strategic figure, relying on quick thinking, deception, and masterful manipulation rather than raw firepower. However, he still played an active role in the action sequences, particularly in the film's infamous ambush scene, where he and Schaefer turned the tables on their pursuers by using enemy uniforms, misdirection, and surprise tactics to wipe out an entire Nazi patrol. This sequence was heavily influenced by real-life Special Operations Executive (SOE) tactics, which often relied on sabotage, disguise, and psychological warfare to outmaneuver the enemy. The filmmakers worked closely with military consultants to ensure that the action scenes had a level of authenticity, even though some elements were heightened for cinematic effect. One of the most technically challenging aspects of the production was the cable car fight sequence, which required stunt coordination, special rigging, and aerial cinematography to capture the breathtaking high-altitude battle between Major Smith's team and their Nazi adversaries. Since digital effects were not an option at the time, the production team had to rig actual cable cars with hidden safety harnesses, concealed stunt wires, and reinforced platforms to allow for real stunt performers to engage in choreographed fights while suspended high above the snowy mountains. To achieve a sense of height and danger, multiple camera angles were used, including helicopter-mounted cameras that captured sweeping aerial shots of the battle. The end result was one of the most thrilling and visually striking action sequences in war cinema history, further cementing where Eagles Dare as a landmark in action filmmaking. Another crucial element in shaping the film's action was the editing and pacing, which played a major role in maintaining tension and suspense. The film's editor, John Jimson, was responsible for crafting the high-energy sequences by using tight cuts, rapid transitions, and seamless continuity editing to keep the audience engaged. One of his most impressive feats was the climactic escape sequence, in which Major Smith and his team navigate the enemy-infested castle, evade capture, and engage in a massive gunfight before making their escape via a speeding bus. This sequence, which lasts nearly 20 minutes, is a masterclass in action editing, as it balances high-intensity shootouts, strategic deception, and fast-paced chases in perfect harmony. The editing ensured that the action never felt chaotic or disjointed, instead providing a clear sense of geography and momentum that kept audiences on the edge of their seats. In addition to its gripping action, where Eagles Dare also paid careful attention to historical accuracy in its depiction of wartime equipment, uniforms, and tactics. The production team worked with military historians and costume designers to ensure that the Nazi officers, soldiers, and vehicles were depicted with a high degree of accuracy. Authentic Wehrmacht and SS uniforms were used, and special attention was given to Nazi insignias, command structures, and military decorum to create a believable enemy presence. However, while the film strived for visual authenticity, some elements were intentionally exaggerated for dramatic effect, such as the large number of enemies dispatched by Smith and Schaefer with relative ease. Despite these minor embellishments, Where Eagles Dare was praised for its commitment to realism in its action and espionage sequences, distinguishing it from many of the more sensationalized war films of the era. The combination of practical effects, expert stunt work, and meticulously choreographed action scenes made the film a benchmark for war thrillers and set a new standard for how covert operations were portrayed on screen. The film's blend of espionage, intense gunfights, and strategic warfare laid the groundwork for future action thrillers, influencing everything from James Bond films to modern military blockbusters. With the action sequences and special effects successfully executed, the production moved into post-production and sound design, where the film's final intensity and atmosphere would be shaped. The next phase would involve the creation of Ron Goodwin's unforgettable musical score, the fine-tuning of battle sound effects, and the final editing touches that would transform Where Eagles Dare into one of the greatest war adventure films of all time. With the grueling on-location shoot and intricate action sequences completed, Where Eagles Dare entered the post-production phase, where the film's pacing, atmosphere, and overall intensity would be refined. This phase was just as crucial as the filming itself, as it required meticulous editing, sound design, and an evocative musical score to enhance the tension and excitement that had been captured on set. Given the film's blend of espionage, deception, and relentless action, the post-production process needed to ensure that the audience remained on the edge of their seats from beginning to end. Every aspect, from the way shots were edited together to the timing of explosive sound effects, played a role in shaping the final cinematic experience. One of the most critical elements of post-production was the musical score, composed by the legendary Ron Goodwin. Goodwin, an accomplished British composer known for his work on war films such as Battle of Britain, 1969, and 633 Squadron, 1964, was brought in to create a score that would amplify the film's tension, adventure, and larger-than-life action sequences. His music for Where Eagles Dare would become one of the most iconic war movie scores of all time, instantly recognizable for its powerful, militaristic brass and pounding percussion. The main theme, a rousing orchestral march, was designed to evoke a sense of danger and heroism, perfectly matching the high-stakes mission of Major Smith and his team. The score played a pivotal role in setting the film's tone, seamlessly transitioning between quiet, suspenseful moments and intense action sequences. Goodwin's use of dramatic string sections and bold brass instrumentation added to the film's grand scale, while subtle, creeping melodies heightened the sense of espionage and betrayal lurking beneath the surface. For key sequences, such as the tense infiltration of the Nazi stronghold, Goodwin employed low, brooding orchestral tones to build anticipation, ensuring that the audience felt the pressure mounting as Smith and Schaefer maneuvered through enemy territory. In contrast, during the explosive gunfights and chase sequences, the score erupted into fast-paced, pulsating rhythms, reinforcing the film's action-packed energy. Goodwin's ability to adapt his music to the film's shifting tones was instrumental in crafting an experience that felt both thrilling and cinematic. Alongside the score, the film's editing played an equally significant role in shaping its final impact. John Jimson, the film's editor, was tasked with piecing together the massive amount of footage shot on location, ensuring that the narrative remained tight, coherent, and engaging. Given that Where Eagles Dare was not just an action movie, but also a complex espionage thriller, Jimson's editing choices had to strike a delicate balance between allowing the audience to follow the intricate plot twists while maintaining a relentless pace. One of the biggest challenges in editing was handling the film's many double-crosses and hidden agendas, ensuring that each reveal landed with the right amount of dramatic weight. The film's pivotal interrogation scene, in which Major Smith turns the tables on the Nazis by exposing a web of deception within their own ranks, required precise pacing and careful placement of reaction shots to maximize suspense. Jimson cut between the characters with surgical precision, drawing out the tension before allowing the moment of revelation to unfold. This technique helped keep audiences guessing until the final moments, ensuring that the espionage elements remained just as compelling as the action sequences. Equally important was the editing of the film's action sequences, particularly the climactic escape scene in which Smith, Schaefer, and the surviving members of their team make a desperate getaway from the enemy stronghold. This 20-minute sequence involved gunfights, explosions, a high-speed chase, and daring stunts, all of which needed to be cut together seamlessly to maintain an adrenaline-pumping rhythm. Jimson's sharp, dynamic editing style helped to escalate the tension as the team fought their way through waves of Nazi soldiers, ensuring that the action never felt repetitive or overwhelming. By carefully controlling the tempo of the scene, alternating between quick-cut bursts of gunfire and longer, suspenseful pauses, He allowed the audience to absorb each moment of danger without losing sight of the mission's overall progression. The sound design also played a crucial role in immersing the audience in the film's world. Since Where Eagles Dare was a war movie that relied heavily on gunfights, explosions, and high-altitude action, the sound effects had to be both powerful and realistic. The production team recorded real gunfire and explosive charges, ensuring that each shot fired in the film carried a sense of impact and weight. Special attention was given to the sounds of weapons, with distinct audio signatures assigned to different firearms to enhance realism. For example, the MP-40 submachine guns used by Schaefer and Smith had a distinct, rapid-fire crack, while the rifles carried by German soldiers produced deeper, echoing blasts, reinforcing the film's immersive battle sequences. Additionally, the sound design for the cable car fight sequence was particularly challenging, as it required the creation of mechanical whirring, wind effects, and metallic creaks to simulate the precarious, high-altitude setting. The sound team carefully layered gusts of wind, the hum of steel cables, and the clanking of boots on metal platforms to make the scene feel as perilous as possible. These subtle sound details added an extra layer of tension, making the audience feel as if they, too, were hanging high above the mountains in the middle of a deadly confrontation. Finally, as the film neared completion, the final cut was screened for test audiences, allowing the filmmakers to gauge reactions and make any necessary adjustments. The test screenings confirmed that the film had succeeded in delivering both thrilling action and gripping suspense, though some minor edits were made to streamline certain dialogue-heavy scenes. However, the majority of the film remained intact, as audiences responded positively to its blend of espionage, action, and wartime intrigue. With the music, editing, and sound design fully polished, Where Eagles Dare was finally ready for release. The film's marketing campaign emphasized its big-budget action sequences, its star-studded cast, and its thrilling spy mission storyline, positioning it as one of the most anticipated war films of the decade. The final step was to premiere the film and gauge its reception, an event that would ultimately determine whether Where Eagles Dare would stand the test of time as a cinematic classic. With post-production complete, the stage was set for the film's theatrical debut, a moment that would reveal whether its bold vision had paid off. When Where Eagles Dare premiered in 1968, it was met with significant anticipation, thanks to its high-profile cast, breathtaking action sequences, and gripping espionage-driven narrative. The film's marketing campaign positioned it as an unparalleled World War II adventure, emphasizing its big-budget spectacle, star-studded lead actors, and thrilling wartime intrigue. Audiences and critics alike were eager to see how the film's unique blend of military action and complex intelligence maneuvers would translate onto the big screen. Upon release, the film was an instant success, performing exceptionally well at the box office and quickly becoming one of the most popular war films of its time. Box office performance and initial reception. At the box office, Where Eagles Dare proved to be a major commercial success, grossing $21 million worldwide against its estimated $7.7 million budget, an impressive feat for a war film in the late 1960s. In the United States and the United Kingdom, where war films were consistently well received, audiences flocked to theaters to witness Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood lead one of the most daring on-screen infiltration missions ever portrayed in film. Critics were divided in their reviews, with some praising the film's non-stop action, thrilling suspense, and incredible stunts, while others felt that the film's plot was overly convoluted due to its numerous double-crosses and intelligence maneuvers. However, general audiences embraced the film wholeheartedly, appreciating its balance between intelligent espionage and explosive action sequences. Richard Burton's performance as Major Smith was widely praised, as he brought a sense of cunning intelligence and commanding presence to the role. However, it was Clint Eastwood's portrayal of Lieutenant Schaefer, a no-nonsense, efficient, and deadly soldier, that truly stood out. His performance was so well received that it further cemented his status as an international action star, paving the way for his later success in Hollywood. The film's action sequences were lauded as some of the most thrilling ever seen in a war film, particularly the cable car fight scene and the high-speed escape sequence. Many critics noted that while the film was set in World War II, its action-heavy approach felt ahead of its time, resembling the modern action thrillers that would dominate Hollywood in the decades to come. However, not all reviews were glowing. Some critics felt that the film's length, 158 minutes, was excessive, arguing that certain scenes, particularly the slower espionage moments, could have been trimmed down to maintain a tighter pacing. Others criticized the film for taking liberties with historical accuracy, particularly in its portrayal of German military operations and its depiction of Nazi officers. Nonetheless, these criticisms did little to diminish the film's widespread appeal, as it continued to draw audiences long after its initial release. The film's lasting influence on the war genre. Beyond its box office success, Where Eagles Dare had a profound impact on the war film genre, influencing the way covert operations, elite military teams, and infiltration missions were portrayed in cinema. Unlike traditional World War II films, which often focused on large-scale battles, strategic victories, and the heroism of common soldiers, Where Eagles Dare introduced a new kind of war movie, one that blended spy thriller elements, psychological deception, and high-intensity combat. This formula would later be replicated in numerous war films, espionage thrillers, and action blockbusters. The film's success helped pave the way for movies like The Dirty Dozen, 1967, which had introduced the concept of an elite, hand-picked team conducting a covert mission. Kelly's Heroes, 1970, which followed a similar formula of small-unit infiltration behind enemy lines, but with a comedic twist. Inglourious Bastard, 2009. Quentin Tarantino's revisionist war thriller borrowed heavily from Where Eagles Dare's themes of covert sabotage, deception, and intense action sequences. The influence of Where Eagles Dare was not limited to war films alone. It had a significant impact on the action thriller genre, particularly films featuring special forces operatives, intelligence missions, and military sabotage operations. Some of the biggest Hollywood action stars, including Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Willis, have cited the film as an inspiration for their own careers, particularly in their portrayals of elite warriors who must outthink and outgun their enemies against impossible odds. Cultural impact and lasting popularity. Even decades after its release, Where Eagles Dare remains one of the most beloved war films ever made. Its memorable one-liners, intense action scenes, and gripping storyline have allowed it to stand the test of time, continuing to attract new generations of viewers. Several factors have contributed to the film's enduring popularity. Frequent television broadcasts and home media releases. The film became a staple of war movie marathons on television throughout the 1980s and 1990s, ensuring that it remained in public consciousness. Highly quotable dialogue. Richard Burton's Major Smith delivers some of the most iconic lines in war cinema, including, "Broadsword calling Danny boy. Broadsword calling Danny boy." A line that has become a cult favorite among military film enthusiasts. A strong cult following among military and espionage fans. The film's blend of strategy, deception, and action continues to be studied by fans of special operations and intelligence tactics, leading to its continued relevance in military history discussions. Video game and pop culture references. Where Eagles Dare has been referenced in numerous video games, books, and TV shows, with its mountainous Nazi stronghold setting inspiring countless fictional espionage missions in popular media. Critical re-evaluation and legacy. Over the years, Where Eagles Dare has been re-evaluated by critics and historians, with many now recognizing it as one of the greatest war action films ever made. While some of its plot twists may seem over the top, and certain espionage elements might feel contrived, the film's sheer entertainment value, groundbreaking action choreography, and expert performances continue to make it a benchmark in the genre. Modern film critics often compare Where Eagles Dare to other espionage thrillers and military action films, noting how it helped bridge the gap between classic war movies and modern high-octane action thrillers. Its influence can be seen in everything from James Bond films to the Mission Impossible franchise, which similarly feature elite teams infiltrating heavily guarded enemy strongholds through a combination of intelligence, strategy, and firepower. Even today, over 5 decades since its release, Where Eagles Dare remains a fan favorite, frequently ranking among the top World War II films in retrospectives and online polls. Its combination of a gripping plot, stunning action sequences, and unforgettable performances ensures that it continues to be a timeless classic, one that embodies the perfect fusion of war, espionage, and adventure filmmaking. Conclusion. The enduring legend of Where Eagles Dare. In the end, Where Eagles Dare was more than just a war film. It was a cinematic milestone that redefined how special operations, deception, and action could be portrayed in a World War II setting. From its harrowing cable car fight to its explosive escape sequence, the film delivered spectacle, intrigue, and relentless excitement in a way that few war films had done before. Its legacy continues to inspire filmmakers, actors, and fans, proving that, even after all these years, Where Eagles Dare remains one of the greatest wartime thrillers ever made.